Hey everybody. Um, I don't know if you can hear me. If somebody on the chat can say hi. Okay, can everybody hear me all right? Okay, perfect. Cool. So let's get started. Thanks for joining us for this first webinar we're doing here at Kolor GoPro. And we are going to talk today about Autopano Video Pro 2.5 and 2.6. There's a good reason for us to be talking about those two releases at the same time. These have been the two major releases in Autopano Video Pro, mainly because of everything we have been doing as a part of GoPro with the GoPro Omni. And this means that one of the major features of these new releases, the Autopano Video Pro 2.5 and 2.6, is the Omni importer. And that's something I'm going to talk a little bit about today. Not at length, because I know that a lot of you guys don't use the Omni, so I don't want to discriminate against all the people who are using our solutions with some other rigs. But I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and then we're going to go through a few of the new features that have been implemented with Autopano Video Pro 2.5 and 2.6. A few tips and tricks on how to use those. And then I will take a few minutes to answer some of your questions. So feel free to ask some questions in the chat. If we don't have the opportunity to answer all of them, we will take some time later in a few weeks probably to do some other webinars and where we will address some of those questions. I'm sorry, I'm reading that the audio is a bit choppy. As I've said, this is a first for us, a first live event, and hopefully we'll get some feedback from you guys and learn how to better the experience for the next one. Hopefully it will still be okay to view it for you guys, and you will still be able to learn a few things. Okay, so let's get started. So at first, as I said, we have done quite a lot of things to support the Omni with Autopano Video Pro 2.5 and 2.6. And the first thing is the Omni importer. And the thing with the Omni importer, so it's a software that allows you to ingest footage that was shot with the Omni. Sadly, for users that don't have something like the Omni, a lot of the things we can do with the Omni importer is really exclusive to it, because being part of GoPro for Kolor has allowed us to get some more data out of the cameras when footage is shot with the Omni. And also the synchronization that the Omni allows is really a crucial part of a lot of the things we can do with the Omni importer. So just to demo it quickly, usually you could just plug a USB hub and search on the SD cards. But here, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to go and grab some footage here on my hard drive. And so I got a few examples here from the Omni importer. And the first thing that's really important is to have that folder structure that mimics what would happen if you were to plug some SD cards. So for those of you who are going to be using Omni importer and dumping footage onto your hard drive, it's really important to keep the DCIM folder in full with then the 100AR001 structure and then all your footage with the LRVs and THMs. This is really a crucial part of using the Omni importer. So here I'm just going to click on the folder that contains my SD cards dump, and click on Open, and it's going to find my SD card data. And this is what you get when you arrive at the Omni importer. And those of you who've been using Omni for a few months and with Autopano Video Pro 2.5 might not know this interface. This is the version that was implemented with 2.6, and it's a really major update to the Omni importer because it now supports the new modes that have been implemented in the Omni, and that includes the photos, time lapses and bursts, and the 120 frames per second videos. So you can see that you have here a selection of your footage, your videos, photos, multi-shots, and here a section called Start. And the workflow here would really be to just browse through your videos, find the ones that you like, so you can just preview them. And you just can sort of see what happens in it, select which ones you like, which ones you don't. You can then start the shots that you like and not use the ones that you don't like. So you can just go through others, then go through your photos. Maybe this is the photo you want, and this is the multi-shot you want. And now when I'm going to start footage, now I only have the shots that I want to work on, that I know I'm going to be importing. And how then would I proceed? Well, I can start by renaming the different shots, and that's really cool. So I can just like change the name here. So this would be maybe, this is a time lapse. And I now have different videos, and I just lost my window. Where are you? Okay, so here it is. Okay, so if I grab those videos, photos, and I'm going to the start. So then I can, so again, preview my shots and select a few settings. So you have a few settings that you would find then into Autopano Video Pro, including the stabilization, color harmonization with a few different settings. You can also select what part, the side of your work area, basically. So you can select an in and out point for all of those settings. Those settings will only be applied to this area. And if you decide to do a render of your project, it will also only be applied to this area. So you're only going to be rendering the area that you selected. But you will still be copying the entirety of your footage. You are not going to be just copying these parts. You're going to be copying everything. So this is one of the really cool features. You can change the blending between smooth and sharp, and you can really. The cool thing is that you can just select everything with Command and A or Control and A on a PC and apply some different settings. So let's say you just want to apply sharp to everything. You also want to do a color harmonization every 5 seconds to everything. But maybe you just want to render this footage. So you know that you see now that you have different settings for the different videos you have. One last thing before moving on to something else, to Autopano Video Pro. You can see here that when you are shooting 120 frames per second, you cannot have the preview. And the reason for that is that the GoPro Hero 4 Black, when shooting 120 frames per second footage, will not create a LRV file, which is a low-res video file that we use to do the preview, the real-time preview with the Omni importer. So that's the reason why the preview is not supported, but everything else will work perfectly fine with the Omni importer, even with the 120 frames per second modes. One last thing also, with the photo mode, you are going to have a few options as well. So you can change the color harmonization, and you can decide to do a render with a full resolution photo in JPEG, or even a full resolution with TIFF with very low compression. So that's it for the Omni importer. Now let's get into Autopano Video Pro. So if I open here, Autopano Video Pro 2.6. And Autopano Video Pro 2.6. So one of the first new features in Autopano Video Pro 2.6 and 2.5 is the missing files finder. So this is a really cool thing that was implemented quite recently. We've done a lot of work actually in terms of UI and user experience in general. So let's say you had a Cava file and you've decided to move it to another location for some reason, or you changed the names of the footage that were associated with your Cava file. So in the past, you would have had to go basically get a headache trying to find this footage, rename them, or like regroup the Cava file and the video file. Now, when you open your Cava file, you will see that it's telling you that you have some missing files. And if I just go here and tell him, well, the footage you are looking for is actually around here, it's this, and you are looking for the 223 here, you can just open it and it's going to recognize all the footage here. This can be useful. There's a little trick that you can use with the missing file importer, which is that, as you might know, the template stitching is does not keep the masking tools, does not keep the control points, does not keep pretty much anything. It just basically just keeps the yaw, pitch, roll, and distortions of the footage and just applies that to some other content. If you want to keep the different settings, the different masks, for example, that you've used, you can change the position, change the place where you had your Cava file, and it's going to tell you that it's missing some files. And you can then just go use this little tool and point it to some other files. Basically, just replace the files that it's looking for with some new ones, and it's going to apply then the full project. It's going to be applied to the new files that you want to use. So that's one little neat trick that you might be able to use. So now I get my project open. Yes, George, you can go on kolor.com/download, and in Autopano Video Pro, you're going to see that you have 2.6 available. I recommend all of you guys to follow Kolor on Facebook and go check the Kolor website quite regularly, because we have quite often a few releases, and we also have some beta versions that are available for download to a lot of you guys. For example, at the moment, we have Autopano Giga 4.4 Beta 1 that is available. From my experience so far, it's been pretty stable, so I would really recommend you guys going and using it. It provides us some really useful feedback to see if the beta is stable and if the new features we have are good. And there are a few interesting things with this new version of Autopano Giga. So if you guys are interested in that, go to kolor.com/download. So now my project is open, and there are a few things that are really important that had been missing for quite some time from Autopano Video Pro, and that have been implemented in 2.5 recently. Lots of you guys probably have noticed that we now have the history section and the undo and redo buttons. So this is quite useful, and it's been a long time waiting for us to finally get that. And as usual with those type of functions, Command Z or Control Z will allow you to go back one step. But the history section is also a good way to just go through what you've done with your footage, with your project, and just go back in time quite faster. So that's one of the first major UI improvements for us, because, hey, it's 2017 now. We also have one new feature that's been implemented, one new UI improvement that's been implemented since 2.6. And it happens when you go into the blend section and you decide to use smooth blending. So now it's telling you that it's not compatible with mask editing. And when you apply it, it's going to gray out the mask timeline, because there's always been quite a lot of confusion from our users on the usage of the mask tool in Autopano Giga. And so we've decided to be really straightforward and show you that when you are using smooth, it is not compatible with the usage of the masks. It's really important to understand that basically the smooth, for those of you who've been using Adobe products, the smooth blending is really similar to feathering when you are using an Adobe product. And basically, if you have some feathering over the entirety of the overlapping area, well, changing the exact place of the stitch line is not going to do much to help you improve your stitching. It's not going to have much effect. The mask actually moves a little bit the stitch line, but it's just that you don't really see it because there's so much blending, so much feathering between the different images. So it's really important to understand that notion. So now it's basically it's telling you in the interface what's happening. Oh, apparently there are some sound problems. If you guys please, I'm monitoring the chat as much as I can. So if you guys can tell me when you have some troubles following up, this is really useful for me. I don't know. Okay, I don't know if you guys can follow along still. Okay, well, I think that has a lot to do with the different internet connections that you guys have. Okay, let's keep on that, and we'll make sure to improve that for the next time we do these live events. Okay, so while we are talking about the UI of Autopano Video Pro, a lot of people don't really know, but there are quite a few shortcuts that are really useful in day-to-day usage of the interface. And the first one that's really basic and really important is that when you are in your timeline, if you just use I and O, which is pretty logic, you're going to have, obviously, you're going to change the size of your render bar. But now let's say you want to do some stitching. You want to do some stitching specifically on that render area. Well, you would sort of try to find a way where you can sort of match those things. Well, actually, if you just press F here, you're going to be matching the size of your selection with the size of your render area. So that's F. F will allow you to do that. Now, let's say you are working on a small area and you want to match the size of the render area to your selection area. Well, Shift F will allow you to change that and to change the size of your area. So this is a really cool little trick that we use pretty much all the time, and it is a really efficient way to gain a little bit of time. Also, obviously, this usually something that we probably all do many times when we work on a project. We're going to be changing the horizon slightly and then clicking spacebar to sort of preview, and we've lost what we've done with the horizon because you have to apply all the time by just clicking here. Well, you can also do that if you change the horizon by pressing A you're going to be applying your setting. This works only in the preview area when you are working. But we will be probably implementing that into some of the other functions, including in APG, when we can in future release. So yeah, A to apply. Lastly, it's more classical, but if you just use the left and right keys, you're going to be also changing, going back and forward with the different between the different frames, and moving one frame or back one frame. And also, finally, if you just want to grab the cutter tool, pressing C will allow you to grab the cutter tool. If you need to remember those, most of them have tooltip, but except for the F and Command F, which is mostly hidden into into the software. So these are the few UI improvements that we've added into Autopano Video Pro. Excuse me. Next up, we also have a little tool, because a lot of people, when you go over 4 gigabytes with a GoPro, the GoPro is going to be creating multiple files when you have long videos, and people, you guys used to merge those videos using FFmpeg. So we have decided to add here in the tools section, you have now a merge video file, and this is pretty easy. You just drag and drop your 2 videos into the input videos, select what output video the name should be and where it should be, and then click on merge, and it's basically just going to take the time it takes to copy those 2 files into your new location to merge them. And this is a really cool and important tool, because FFmpeg used to have a problem where it would sometimes, if you are working with 6 files that you need to merge, you need to do the concatenation with the 6 files, and FFmpeg would sometimes do some slightly different frame rates. So you would have something that would be at 59.993 and another would be at 59.994, and even that slight difference of frame rate will make Autopano Video Pro not accept your source images. You need to have the exact same frame rate between your 6 source files to be able to put them into Autopano Video Pro and stitch them. So we have developed this little tool that you can use with all of your videos, and it's really convenient. So this is a simple MP4 merger, but it's a really cool little tool. Next up, we have some really cool little features. So, as I said, we really want to work hard. We are really working hard in terms of creating a solution that is completely device agnostic. Yes, we are really proud of what you can do with the Omni, and we really believe that the Omni is right now one of the best solutions in the world to create 360 video at a professional level. But we are also aware that a lot of you why a lot of you are working with some other rigs, including some consumer cameras, because in some situations those little guys are really cool tools. If you are in a hurry, or if you are in a very tight spot, sometimes using those consumer cameras with just 2 lenses is really convenient. And the problem with those little cameras is that they create files that have the 2 lenses into one single video file. And that means that if I close my project here, if I just try to open one single video, it's going to tell me at least 2 videos are required to stitch it, and I have my 2 videos here, my 2 lenses into one single file, and I cannot do much with it, sadly. So the solution here is pretty simple. What you would do, I'm going to close that. What you would do is that if I grab here my video file, I would grab that from my SD cards, and I would then just copy it. So if I do Command C, Command V, and I'm going to create a second file that is exactly the same. Cool thing here is that you are going to have already synchronized footage. It's going to be the fastest, easiest solution to work with. So now I have my two lenses in two different video files. I don't have to do any work. I know that with those kind of cameras, a lot of people also start by cutting the file in half in After Effects, and that gives you one more step of rendering, which is not that convenient. So now, if I go here and I stitch, well, the problem is that these are not cameras that use some of the GoPro lenses or some of the lenses that work with GoPro, and it's not exactly easy to work with like a lens model. You could probably go to fisheye and try to sort of guess or find out on the internet what lens you are using. So let's say you would sort of go for like a 6mm lens. You would then pitch at current position, and it's going to create a result that's going to be pretty weird, because it's going to be trying to stitch those two cameras, but it's going to be just finding the control points easily, because, well, it's just putting the cameras on top of each other. So what you would actually do is go Edit, open Autopano Giga, and if I open here Autopano Giga, I would go in this area in Image Properties, open that up. So I have my settings here. So I got my two lenses with my fisheye, and I would go here in the circular crop. And in the circular crop, I'm just gonna go here on the first video. I'm just gonna crop my image. I'm going to just apply it to all image, then go to the next one, and I'm going to crop it on the other lens. And now if I click on OK, I can now go and do I have, like, you see, I had like control points all over the place, so I'm just going to delete those, and I'm going to do an analysis, sort of find out some new control points. So that would be the first sort of basic principle of trying to figure out, trying to get those files to work together. So I would then just try to find and refine my stitching. So now let's say, okay, I'm happy with that. I'm just going to delete bad control points. Do an optimization. Now let's say I'm happy with that result. Okay, it's not going to be perfect right now, but let's say it's okay. So I'm going to save, send that back to Autopano Video Pro. Okay, so it's not perfect, obviously, but I'm trying to go fast here and not take too much of your time, and I'm gonna have some good news for those of you who use those kind of cameras. So let's say I'm happy with that stitching. I can apply, and now the thing is that I have some other footage that I want to stitch with that same template. So what I would have done before is, so first I would have saved that as my back-to-back one footage. And then I would have closed my project and gone through that exact same process with my second video. So I got my back-to-back two here. I'm gonna do again, copy my file, and then put it into Autopano Video Pro, and then have to go through all those steps to finally get to another video that I stitched. So this is where the template stitching goes into play. And before the Autopano Video Pro 2.6, for the template stitching, you would have needed to go and basically do the steps that I have here. So if I click on Stitch, and I would have to go into my different folders and try to find here, okay, this is the panel I want to use, and click open and apply that. But I've actually already done that, and I know I'm going to be using that camera quite often. It's always going to be the same configuration. I'm always going to have those exact same settings when I'm going to be shooting 4K with my back-to-back consumer camera. So what I really want is actually something like a preset, something where I have just my different templates, and this is exactly what you can now do. So here you see that I now have a drop-down menu. So how do I add my dot panels here? Well, you just go into File, and you go into Preferences. You go into Edition, and here if you click there, I now have my folder with my user presets. And I used to only have presets for my cameras. Those are these ones, the lenses presets. If I have, let's say, if I'm shooting with something like a Sony Alpha 7, and I'm using a fisheye lens, now I could have done my configuration, calibration with my Sony Alpha 7 and use that to stitch. Here it wouldn't work with a camera that does like the two lenses into one single file, but I can also add my own panoramas. So let's say I'm going to put my back-to-back 4K pano here in the preset panorama. And now if I'm just restarting if I just restart Autopano Video Pro, I'm not going to save on this one. I'm going to restart Autopano Video Pro. Sorry, Scotty Wagner, I cannot really discuss in this kind of event what we are going to do with our solutions, but just know that we are working a lot on improving the experience of using our software all the time. So don't worry, there are a lot of new features that are coming for Autopano Video Pro. And we'll do some live events to show them all to you guys when we go out with it. We will be releasing a ton of documentation and a ton of information to let you know, all of you, what we have done with our softwares and what are the new cool things you can do with it. So let's get back to our little back-to-back footage. So I'm back to the same step I was here before, but if I click on Stitch, now I can just use drop-down, and I have my back-to-back 4K that panel, and I can just click on Stitch, and now it's going to apply those settings to my new video. If you go in the description of the live video you are watching right now, you are going to be able to go on the color documentation. There's a written tutorial that will give you all those steps to show you exactly how to get to that result. And at the bottom of it, you will find some of a panel and some example files, and this is going to be that exact panel. So this is going to be this one, which is a really good one that we've worked quite a little bit on it to make sure that it looked really good, and it was a nice distortion, and it had the correct values of distortion, so that you guys can check it out and use it for your project. All right. So this is the template stitching, the new version of the template stitching. And obviously here I'm showing you with this example, because this example is really one of the most used and one of the most asked on the forums, these kind of cameras, these kind of back-to-back cameras. But obviously, if you are using any type of rig, if you are using an Omni, really, you should be using the Omni importer. But if you are using some of the other rigs, and you know you are going to be coming back from a shoot, and you've worked with any camera, but you've kept the same settings all over the day, or even you know you are going to be using all the same settings all the time, the cameras are always going to be in the same place with the same settings, well, you're always going to be, you can always create those dot panels, those reference panels, and use them to stitch and get those rough stitches, because this is really the important part, is getting those rough stitches. This first stitch out of the software as fast as possible, so that then you can start working on editing them in Adobe Premiere, creating your experience, creating your final edit, and then coming back to them, only working on those important parts, the one that you really want to show in your edit. So you don't have to stitch here 44-second footage if you are going to be using only 20-second footage. So you really want to have those first stitches as fast as possible out of AVP into Adobe Premiere and really working on them. So next up, the little improvement that we've done with Autopano Video Pro is in the stabilization here, you can see that we have a small rolling shutter correction. That is for the GoPro Omni only, sadly. The reason for the fact that it's only GoPro Omni is because it's we have a lot of metadata with the GoPro Omni that we don't have with any other camera, which means that we can do a little work on correcting those rolling shutter issues. It's not perfect, I'm not going to lie or pretend, but it is a nice little addition in Autopano Video Pro. Next up, we have the new batch rendering. This is a pretty neat way of working with your footage, because here you just are going to save your different footage, save the different cavas. If you change the render settings, you can then just use the different settings you want to use. Click on apply, save. And then once you're done for the day, you can go back out. You can then just grab your different cavas, drag them into the batch renderer. You can just drag this one as well. I can just do that. So I can just have my different cavas. Oh, I think I haven't saved when the files were missing, so that's why. But if I grab another one, the one on my desktop. That was another one that doesn't have the linked files. Anyway, you kind of see the idea is that you can sort of reorganize the different files, change their position, just really add the different files here, and then just click on play to launch the rendering. And let's say for the night, if you've worked on the bunch of different footage during the day, you don't want to block your computer by rendering at the end of each shot. So you really just want to send them to the batch renderer at the end of the day and leave your computer rendering your files for the night. So this is really the idea and the workflow here. And finally, when you are rendering, when you are rendering, you used to have to use this the little special metadata injector, the little tool that's provided for free by YouTube. You would have to drag your video inside that little tool and then inject the metadata. Well, with Autopano Video Pro, if you are exporting something straight out of Autopano Video Pro, you don't need anymore to do that, whether you are on a PC or on a Mac. The metadata that tells it that it is a 360 video is going to be included directly into the 360 video. So that's a really cool little feature. And finally, with AVP, I see your questions, guys, about so the advanced stitchings and things like that. We are working, you've probably seen that we've released the 5 first videos of a full workflow tutorial, and this full workflow tutorial is really going to be the reference point for that. So we have a lot of ways in this full workflow video. We have some videos dedicated to working with control points and working with those kind of things. So this is really going to be the main source of information for you guys. If you have some more really specific questions about a single point of stitching, like a single a single thing in the stitching process, I can do that in a few minutes once we're done with the new features of Autopano Video Pro 2.6 and 2.5. I'm going to show you one thing that's probably going to be really exciting for a lot of you who are doing some advanced post-production. And that is really a cool way to improve the quality of some situations. Oh, and I see that there is a question about underwater stitching, and underwater stitching it's painful. Trust me, I know what you're going through. It's a long process. For the underwater stitching, really, what I would recommend is you probably have some moments where you have things crossing in the seams between different cameras at different moments in the video. So basically, if you have 6 videos in your footage, what I would do is really just, let's say at 9 seconds, you're going to have something crossing between camera 1 and 2. So that's the point where you're going to go into Autopano Giga and try to find the control points between camera 1 and 2, and not really focus on anything else. Because maybe, let's say here, you're going to go and you're going to have something crossing between camera 2 and 4. And so now you're going to go into Giga and you're going to find the control points because you have something that is, you have some information happening between camera 2 and 4, and etc., etc. You try to find those points in your video where you're going to have something that's common to 2 different cameras, and you find the control points in that area. And so you work your way, building the links between all those cameras at different moments in times. You don't cut your stitch timeline. You keep the stitch timeline into one state, so everything you do is applied to the entire footage. But you work link by link. Don't try to stitch everything at the same time. Just work link by link. So that's really something important to think about when you are working with those difficult cases where you have underwater footage, a lot of similar situations like white walls and things like that, things that the computer cannot really find those control points, cannot really find the similarities between the 2 images. You're trying to find the moments when you have some things crossing between the different cameras. That's really the important idea here. But let me show you a little really cool trick. Because we have added Cineform and ProRes 4444. So let me grab a good one. This is the one. Okay, just need to grab something here. Where is it? I think the one. Oh, I see. For underwater stitching, having 10 cameras. I mean, having 10 cameras is always going to be a problem. Because basically, if you have more cameras, I know the logic would be to, if you have more cameras, you're going to have less problems. But the problem with that logic is actually that if you have more cameras, you have more stitch lines, and that's really key here. So as I was saying, we have added alpha channel, we have added ProRes and Cineform 4444 into Autopano Video Pro. And what that means is that we can now render with the alpha channel some cameras. And that's really something that's really cool, because it allows you to do something really important, which is, in a situation like this where you have a cam that's mounted on something that's going to move, here I have applied some stabilization to my footage. So I can play my footage and I won't have any movements. But now you can see that the helmet, if I want to have a good stitch all over the place, the helmet on which the rig was, it's not going to be good. It's always going to be really distorted. It's always going to be really bad. And there's nothing you can really do about that. So the traditional method would be to have a picture of the helmet. And that's what we did that day. We had a picture of the helmet, and we then detoured that picture, and we're putting it on top of the stitching using the patching method that we used for logos previously. So we add our patch, we put it into a layer that's called patch, and that allows us to really stick it on top of our stitch here, like that. And so now I have my patch that's on top of my stitch. If I save and go back to Autopano Video Pro, I have my patch, and now if I play that, you see that the patch is moving with the rest of my stitching. So this is really the idea, but you can see that here the patch does not look really natural. And the problem is that this patch is a JPEG. This is just a picture of the helmet, and it's not going to have any lights moving. It's not going to do a really good job. It doesn't do a really good job of really feeling realistic. So what I can do now with this new feature of rendering an alpha channel is that I can go back into Autopano Giga. So if I click on Edit, and what I'm now going to do is that I'm going to unselect the patch. I'm going to put that back into Autopano Video Pro. So now I have my footage without the patch. I'm just going to work with it and just get the horizon where I want it to be and do the stabilization as I want it. Render and render it saying, okay, this is like the full stitch, or here I called it the back plate for my video. And I'm gonna go select ProRes or Cineform, and I'm gonna select 4444. Here I could even just render an MP4, but when I'm rendering something that I know I'm going to be re-rendering in MP4 afterwards, I'm always going to be using Cineform or ProRes, because you don't want to compress your footage multiple times over. Basically, you really always want to work with Cineform or ProRes when you are working with your stitches, and only render an MP4 at the last stage when you are going to upload to YouTube or Facebook or any other platform. It's really just the last step is the compression to MP4, and in the meantime, the less you use MP4s, the better it's going to be. So now I'm going to render my footage here. I'm not actually going to render it because we're live and it would take way too much time. But then what I would do is save as, and save it as now my patch. And I would not change anything. You really must be careful to not touch at all the stitching, not touch the horizon, nothing. You just go back to APG, you open Autopano Giga, and you do the opposite. So now you click on your patch, and you unselect everything. There's one thing though that you need to do before, and there's one thing that needs to be imported into your footage, because if I'm just doing this and now I'm saving, if I go back into Autopano Video Pro, you see that I have nothing. I don't even have my patch. So there's a little trick here, is that you need to drag in a blank alpha channel. So basically, I just have a PNG with nothing in it. It's just a blank PNG, but I added it to my blended layer, to the layer in which I have my cameras, not the patch layer. So now, if I save and I go back into Autopano Video Pro, now I only have my patch. And I can then render that in ProRes or Cineform 4444 with another name. And what you get is two videos. The first one is going to be your full stitch, and the other one is going to be just your patch. And the patch is going to move the same way as your stitch. And now you can just put those two things into After Effects, and with a little work in After Effects, you can animate some shading, you can animate some light, you can rework a little bit on the colors and make it feel way more realistic, and just get that level of realism into your final 360 video that you would not have been able to achieve previously without quite a lot of work. Here it's really making everything way easier and way faster, and you have your full transparency. So it's a really faster and easier workflow to get those moving patches when you want to have some stabilization. It's going to be a much better workflow. So this covers the alpha channel support. And last little detail is that we have our plugins for Adobe Premiere into Autopano Video Pro 2.5 and 2.6. And we've added a new slider for some of the NLE plugins. When you go here into your footage and you have your plugins, you see that you have, let's say, the VR reframe. You can select the smooth transition, and you can, before it was just a ticker, and now it's actually a slider. So you can have just 40% of smoothness or 0%. You can really just adjust the smoothness of the transition in a more precise way, and you can also obviously keyframe it. And just decide how smooth you want those transitions between and those camera movements when you are reframing your video to go from a 360 to a 2D normal flat video. So that's it. Those are the new features from Autopano Video 2.6. I'm just going to browse really briefly through. I'm just going to go briefly through your questions. And so yeah, David, you asked, you said you find some blends look better in some sections, and then you go into After Effects and put the best parts together. Is that a good plan? Yes, absolutely. This is the exact way to work with it. You can get to very good results in Autopano Giga and Autopano Video Pro. You can get pretty close to perfection in some cases. In some cases, you cannot really. So there's a lot of things you can improve, but at some point, the last final touches to get to perfection. Most of those things you are going to do in After Effects, in Premiere. You are going to maybe render a smooth version, a sharp version. Maybe you are going to render two different stitches because you have some action happening 2 meters away from your rig. That's about 6 foot for you in the US. And you're also going to have stuff happening way in the background. And because of parallax, and I really recommend you, everybody watching the first introduction, the 360 video introduction I did in the Omni full workflow tutorial, where I explained parallax. And the parallax situation is not something we can compensate with synchronization with the Omni. It's really something that is an optical phenomenon, and it can be compensated with some complicated calculations, but it's not due to synchronization. Basically, the only way to not have parallax is to have two lenses that would be 200 degrees and completely merged together in one single element, flat element. So parallax is impossible to avoid. It's not going to happen, because you're always going to be looking at things from two different angles. So, So at some point you're gonna have some issues. If you have things happening close and things happening far, it's always gonna have some problems. So maybe the solution is to do a stitch focused on what's happening in your foreground and a stitch focused on what's happening in your background. And then you're gonna have to go into After Effects and rotoscope those things together and use some masking, use some animation of the masks to really get those best results. At some point, I will probably try to do a live event with some people who can tell us about those professional workflows, those kind of really high-end stitching process. And I know for a fact that a lot of those really epic shots that you've all seen in VR and that we've been in front of some shots that we don't really know how they did it. Well, most of the time it's a lot of work for those 10-15 seconds of epicness. It's because it's 10 to 15 layers composited on top of each other and 10 to 15 renders composited on top of each other. So really going into After Effects and trying to find, even just sometimes merging a sharp and a smooth render, using those sharp sections where the stitching is good, and using those smooth sections to sort of mask some of the areas where you have little errors, is gonna go and produce some really good results. So I see some again questions about what we're going to do in the support in the future. So timecode, XML, and release support. I'm not going to answer some questions about the future of the software. Yeah, really, 12 cameras rig. I mean, you're just multiplying the stitch lines. We know what we can do with the 6-camera rig, and if you watch all the GoPro experiences, whether on YouTube or Facebook, you can see what you can achieve with a 6-camera rig, and it really does a good job. What happens with when you add more cameras than that? Either you really go big because you want to do some 3D things, or if you just want to have a lot of cameras, well, what you're doing is actually your rig is bigger, and the problem with, again, parallax, it's what matters is not the amount of cameras you have. What parallax is because your cameras are far apart from each other. So the bigger your rig, basically the more cameras you have in your rig, well, the bigger you're going to have, the bigger size you're going to have, and so you're going to have more parallax in your because your rig is bigger. So it's going to be a trade-off. You're going to have more resolution, but you're also going to have more parallax, and you're going to have more stitch lines. And so, yes, you're going to have also more overlapping areas to choose from. But yeah, the parallax, it's not a question of how many cameras you have. It's also a question of how do you look at your production when you are working. So yeah, so the least amount of lenses, the better. Then it's again, it's a trade-off. You're always going to be you're always, again, same thing with tech media, says have 6 or 7 cams. It's really, yeah, it's really a trade-off between resolution and size of the rig and how many stitch lines, and what are you going to do also with your rig. If you're going to be in a very close space, having 10 cameras is not going to be a good idea. If you're outside, putting your rig on a 4 meters monopod, well, you're going to be good with a 10 or 12 camera rigs because it's going to be like a low parallax situation. You're not going to have things happening very far and very close. You really want to have, if you're going to be just doing like a good, nice scenic shot, having a lot of cameras will just give you more resolution. So that's pretty awesome. So it's always a question of trade-off and balance and how exactly do you use. Really, I recommend you guys have a look at the tutorial, the full workflow tutorial we've uploaded recently. I touch on a lot of those subjects, and especially like this idea of really being aware of what your cameras are seeing and aware of where the stitch lines are, and trying to take that really into account when you are working on production, because ultimately this is going to be the fastest way to reduce your problems in post-production. Anything you can do in production is going to be a massive improvement. So yeah, David Seeger, that's exactly what I meant. This you always try to stage the action in front of a lens and not move cameras. Yeah, it's exactly. I can try to find somewhere I have. Let me find I got a small image that I can show you also. That's probably going to be interesting to you guys. Let me grab it here. That's also something you can sort of think about, is you can then just stage also the scene. So here we were shooting some music, and you can see that here I used duct tape because we had the dancer going around the rig, and the rig was an Omni in the traditional diamond position. And so here we know that this is going to be in the field of view of just one camera. It's going to be really happening in front of one single camera. So I know that all of this, if I have someone getting close to the rig here, well, it's actually going to be pretty easy to stitch because there's no stitching happening here. But here I had marked with duct tape some X on the floor and made like those are the overlapping areas. So here I don't want anybody to come in this area, and basically like this whole pizza pie is basically this whole area is off limits. This is not somewhere I want to have anything to happen, but the characters, the musicians and the dancer here was able to go all around the camera, get less than a meter away from the camera in those zones that I had marked, and then move away again and not step foot in those areas. And so this was a really easy stitch, even if I had things that were happening really close to my rig, and there were really things happening in less than a meter away from my rig. But because of that kind of blocking, basically, you really have to think about this attitude of blocking and camera and being a director really of your footage, and not just putting the rig anywhere and just seeing what happens. You need to really think about what you are going to film and think about the post-production process when you are filming. This is really the only way for you guys to get some good results and really make your life easy in post-production, because ultimately this is really the only solution. So okay, so it's already 7 on my side. This was a webinar made to last an hour. We'll do that again in some time, and so I'm really glad that you guys joined us and had a look. I'll share this file with you. We'll be working on sharing some more formal type of documents in the future, but we are really working to share with you guys as much information as possible and give as much education as possible on VR and how to shoot and how to get good results. And also this webinar, the live video, will be available on replay just in a few minutes, in a few hours. but it's gonna be available on YouTube again for you guys if you are back on it. If you want to check it out again, so please do. And yeah, thank you for joining us. Yes, ICC, we will do some stitching webinars, but again, just don't worry. We are going to be releasing the full workflow videos. So please subscribe to the channel and click on the little bell to get the notifications. And yeah, you will get more information. And same thing. I'm sorry if I'm gonna kill your name, Kartik, I guess. I see that you asked how to manipulate stitches. Again, to manipulate the stitching real part is going to be a part of some other situation. Here, this was really to talk a little bit about the new features in Autopano Video Pro. So again, thank you all for joining us, and I hope you will be joining us again in the next webinar. So thanks and goodbye.